Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian and biblical perspective. This is a warning, but it is not a prediction. I do not know the future, but I do know we are getting closer to Christ's return, and we must be sober, we must be vigilant, and we must not lose focus. We must be ready. We've covered so much of the signs coming together pointing to this time that it's very special. We do not know the day or hour, but we see things narrowing down exponentially. We also see that the enemy is very alert to this time too as well, and they are looking. And I was reminded today when Christ came the first time, when he was born at Bethlehem, the Bible records that even the enemy, Herod, was looking for him too as well, and the activities that he was doing. He was busy. He didn't quite know where he was, but he knew he was there, and he was looking for him too as well. So it's amazing that we see even at this time the enemy looking, and they know a time frame, this Passover time frame, and this involvement with the patterns of Esther and Purim, and how all this overlaps, and with the celestial signs going on. They are busy too. So we cannot point to a specific day or hour, but we see things narrowing down and getting more and more granular and more detailed. We know we are very close, apparently. We've talked before about the gods of Egypt and the Academy Awards and the signaling that Satan is using to tell his disciples that they know something is very important about this time, and the patterns that they know are also in play in this time. And I've referred to this in our booklet. You can find the link in the description box, our Exodus II Handout, because that's what we are anticipating, a second Exodus, the rapture of Christ's ready bride. And there's a lot of patterns and types, so many that are coming together. It's not just one feast and one pattern. There's several patterns and shadows all coming together right now. It's so amazing. But it's been especially interesting to see the gods of Egypt motif at this time, because that ties directly in with Passover, because Satan knows that's what is linked to the next prophetic events on the calendar, so to speak. And we've talked about that before, how we are in between different fall feasts, but they're tied to how the fall feasts are now meeting up with Passover, the day of redemption, and the patterns are merging. We talked the other day about how on Palm Sunday, that weekend, effectively straddled the week, the 2 days there, of the enemy with their messaging on Phoenix and the palm. They know this is the time. So then, just the other day, right after that, is very interesting to see that they sent out another message. The same day as the Brussels attack, there was a fire in Phoenix at a recycling plant. Hello, recycling, Phoenix, coming back? And it was so close to the airport, people thought the airport was on fire, which was very interesting because over in Brussels, there was the attack and the emphasis on airport. And at the same day, there was emphasis at the Denver airport too, with a scare there as well. And of course, airports are associated with departures, and we've seen that big push of Satan's been warning his disciples there's going to be a mass departure, there's going to be an evacuation. So we've seen those themes being interplayed here now, but a fire in Phoenix at a recycling plant. Incredible. They're still continuing the messaging. It's still going on. And of course, those on the rabbinical calendar right now are celebrating Purim. Today, they're actually celebrating the second day of Purim, which is when it's observed in Jerusalem, especially. But there was just a massive 3-day fast for salvation organized by a grassroots Israeli group, and that just ended too as well. And they were putting out the plea for God to save and deliver them, which reminded me of the call which went out at the original triumphal entry, Hosanna, which means, oh save. So now we find ourselves right now currently on day 15, which is the day right after Passover, just a few hours after the Passover lamb was killed, and we're still in a very important time. And here's a layout of how the events at Calvary interplayed with it as well. Christ the Lamb was crucified. 3 days later, on the first day of the week, he rose. Now, of course, the calendar back then was off by 1 day, but it's interesting how, with the way the Jewish days overlap ours halfway over, they're still lining up, even though it's off by 1 day with this year's calendar count. But Passover is a day of redemption, and we were looking at the triumphal entry, and we've been exploring the themes of Purim and Esther and Exodus, and so many different themes and patterns and shadows coming together right now. But let me ask you a question. On what day did Exodus happen? What day did the Israelites actually leave Egypt? They did not leave on the 14th. They left on the 15th. You see, the Passover lamb is killed in the evening on the 14th, right before the 15th. The Israelites left Egypt on the 15th. Deuteronomy 16:1, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God, for in the month of Abib the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. And the word by night there really has the idea of day, and you'll see that here in a minute of how when the night is turning to day. Exodus 12:22, they were given instructions prior to Passover. Moses said, and ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. Now, keep in mind the Passover lamb was killed in the evening of the 14th, so they started eating the Passover dinner technically on the beginning of the 15th, which was at night, and then the angel came and struck the firstborn at midnight on the 15th. But Moses had given them instructions, do not go out of your house until the morning, which would have been on the 15th, halfway through the Jewish day. So let's look at this here, the 15th. If we blow it up, of course, their day starts at the night, evening and the morning. That's how they view the day. At midnight is when the gods of Egypt, when God executed judgment on the gods of Egypt and he struck the firstborn and basically showed that their gods were totally pointless and had no power at all. So that's when they were struck at midnight. And while the Egyptians were mourning and getting ready to bury their dead and Moses was called, they were getting ready to leave in this window between midnight and the morning. They were, of course, already ready. They were dressed to go because Moses told them to be ready. So at daybreak at the morning is when they left Egypt. Numbers 33, 3-5. And they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month. On the morrow, after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with an high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. For the Egyptians buried all their firstborn, which the Lord had smitten among them. Upon their gods also the Lord executed judgments. And the children of Israel removed from Ramses and pitched in Succoth. So they left on the 15th day, on the morning, which is basically halfway through the 15th. That is when they left. And that is when God executed judgment on the gods of Egypt. And the Israelites left Egypt, and they pitched in Sukkoth, which is where we get Sukkot from, the Feast of Tabernacles. Sukkot is tabernacles, booths. And where do we find ourselves prophetically? Between the Day of Atonement, which has already been fulfilled, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Friend, I do not know the future. I do not know what is going to happen, but I do know we are very, very close, and we must be ready. Romans 13:11-12. And that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than we believed. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. The day is at hand when we are about to leave. Again, I do not know the day or hour. But if you do want to track the Jewish concept of daybreak right now and when it is going to be sunrise, Torahcalendar.com has an hourly calendar where you could see approximately sunrise in Jerusalem if you're interested. But again, we do not know the day or hour, but we find shadows and patterns quickly narrowing down. Matthew 25:6-7. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. The signal, the cry, the warning, the exhortation, that came at midnight. The bridegroom is nigh, even at the doors. Let us make sure we are ready. Shine bright for Christ, first and highest above all else. Maranatha.